Hi, this is Amy Lewis.
Maybe more makeup.
This is Engineers Unplugged. Hi, this is Amy Lewis, and you really aren't going to want to miss this episode of Engineers Unplugged. I've got Damian Karlson and Andy Sholomon, and they're going to be taking on the question, is AWS cheaper than on-premises cloud? So Andy, take it away.
Thank you. So Damian, one of the questions I get from customers all the time is, why should I build my own cloud if I can do it on AWS for a lot cheaper? And I often say, well, it's not always cheaper to do it on AWS. And what are your thoughts on that?
All right, so here are my thoughts. There's actually a couple components to cost, right? There's the money cost, and then there's the kind of costs that aren't directly tied to money, correct? So, for example, if I walked up to you and I said, hey, would you like to play a candy matching game on your phone for $500? You might say, no, are you insane? I don't like to match candy. You're a crazy person. Or if I said, would you like to play a very fun candy matching game for $1 a day for 500 days? Yes, I can do that. That's cheaper than coffee. I'm in, right?
Absolutely.
That's kind of the same concept. If you're using a public cloud provider, you don't see all those costs up front, usually, depending on the way that you acquire that, right? But there's also some of the hidden cost potentials. And one of those could be you don't really have control of that public cloud, depending on how you're offering up that service, right? If you're an independent business unit and you just go swipe your corporate Amex, right? You may not necessarily be taking the same precautions as you would be if IT was providing that in a self-service fashion. So there are intellectual property concerns, there's regulatory compliance concerns.
Right.
Those aren't directly tied to cost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and the other thing that I often ask is, well, is your app an enterprise kind of app? If it is, do you need backup? Do you need it across multiple data centers? Do you want it to be set up in such a way that you have guaranteed performance? And all of that adds a little bit of cost, and you lose a little control. So what do you think about that kind of thing?
I think those are very valid points. I am very pro whatever works when it comes to cloud, right? There are certain use cases that are private only. There's use cases that are better fit for public, and there's use cases that are perfect for hybrid. I think that ultimately it really is down to what are the services there? What's in your service catalog? How are you providing that? Is that something that's being blessed by IT? So if you have an IT team and they actually have a reference architecture built on a public cloud provider, like VCHS or something else along those lines, that would be great because you're taking advantage of those public cloud things and you're doing it in a way that the company can stand behind and they can offer those additional services to you because that's not like a black market kind of a cloud purchase. Does that make sense?
Makes absolute sense. The other questions that come up often and the ones that I try to steer my customers towards is the fact that if you're going to go to a hybrid or an off-prem cloud environment, sometimes you have to change the way your application works, right? You have to re-architect. And when you re-architect, you incur certain costs, and if you re-architect for a particular cloud provider without giving it a lot of thought, you end up stuck at that cloud provider. It's very hard to bring your app back if you want to, or to move it to another cloud. Do you have some thoughts about that?
Yes, I do. Whenever I think about moving applications out to the cloud and is it ready for the cloud, I think that's a very valid point. There are some applications that aren't meant for the cloud because they were developed when we were putting them on bare metal, right? You've got a SQL cluster and you have a web server over the top of that, and the way that it's designed and supported by the company that sold you that software, it is not a fit for the cloud, right? Some things are and some things aren't, or at least not a fit for a public cloud. And there's a number of other different use cases that would make it for or against. Did I address your point, or did I?
Well, you did.
Or your question?
Well, you did. And actually, just to kind of put a ribbon on this whole thing,
okay.
Moving your application to a cloud is actually a great thing, and it can do wonders for you, but you have to take into account the whole total cost of ownership, right?
Yes.
You have to figure out how much it's going to cost monthly when you add the HA, the backup, the software costs, all the automation that you have to create to make it available, and also all the changes you have to do. And then the final thing you have to add into that whole equation is your true agility. Will you be able to move that workload off that cloud to another cloud or back to premises? So those are all important questions to ask before you just decide to go completely off-prem. I think a hybrid cloud approach is the right way to go today.
Okay, well that was awesome. Love that discussion. And this literally was a case where we found them having this conversation and said, hey, we want to go on camera? So now, the last part, of course, we need to see a hybrid unicorn. I think the two of you should work together. Yes, it's the unicorn challenge. Hybrid unicorn, go!
All right.
Work together. Oh, wait a second. I don't like where this is going. Apparently that's me holding bacon.
What's great about Amy is not a traditional unicorn because you can't really have good hair and a horn. But little known fact, Amy can shoot rainbows out of her eyeballs. So I'm going to illustrate that right now. And that is the pot of gold on the other end of where Amy's looking.
Wow, I have to say, they may have won the unicorn challenge this time. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Damian. I'm just going to hand them the mic. We'll see you next time on Engineers Unplugged.